anniversary of Black History Month celebration, we're excited about our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, honoring comedy greats. On Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum in downtown LA, we're toasting D.L. Hughley, Melanie Camacho, Earthquake, Munell, Dion Cole, and Martin Lawrence with a surprise guest appearance. A limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon remain, so now would be a good time to head to KBLA1580.com to secure one for yourself. That's KBLA1580.com. A little laughter goes a long way, especially in times like these. So come, join us for our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. Again, tickets are available right now at KBLA1580.com.
Well, I hang around my boy. He's been married for 6 years. Videotaping his wedding day, never watched it. Now and every day he watch it every day, but he watch it in reverse. Because he said he loves seeing himself take that ring back off of that finger. Walking back down that aisle, just waving at her ugly mother down the church, getting back in the limo, back at the bachelor party. Look how happy I was.
KBLA Talk 1580 thanks LA City Council members Curran D. Price Jr. and Heather Hutt for being the presenting sponsors at this year's Black History Month Luncheon. Honoring excellence, resilience, and achievement, we're KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Today is February 18th. How can I ever forget that? February 18th, and we are live on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I had the great privilege earlier today of having a press conference in front of my parents' home, the home that they raised us in. And Yusef Jackson offered reflections. Santita Jackson offered reflections. Congressman Jonathan Jackson offered reflections. My sister Ashley Jackson, our sister Ashley Jackson offered reflections. And of course, I offered reflections. And I was so grateful for the global coverage of that press conference and so grateful for all of the attention that is being paid by the local media on Jesse Jackson's life. I realize that we're becoming forward in just a moment, and I'll talk more about that on the other side of the break. But I do want to say this. After the press conference, I went to the funeral home to check on my father's status, and I should share with you 3 or 4 days before his passing, Dad was at peace, even as he labored to breathe. And having spent some private time with him today, he's definitely at peace. And my mother has insisted upon certain requirements for his public viewing when those details are made available, including, but not limited to, having a glass-covered coffin. And I just want everyone to know that that Dad is in a very, very comfortable place. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I realize we're not going to break. I realize it. I'm just going to say that I'm on KBLA Talk 1580. And I do want to say that I'm very honored that our very special guest in this hour is our regular contributor, P.L. Da Silva, who wrote a wonderful piece, Ode to U.S. Civil Rights icon, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., 1941 to 2026, A Life That Carried the Rainbow. And so I want to take this opportunity to introduce to some. Dr. P.L. Da Silva has over 20 years of experience in backroom diplomacy, mediation, and negotiation. He's taught politics, international relations, and several graduate, undergraduate programs. And in this hour, we're going to reflect on Reverend Jesse Jackson's international accomplishments. P.L., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much, Jesse, and my heartfelt condolences from Asa and me to you and the whole family.
P.L., can you share with us the thoughts behind your piece dated Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, A Life That Carried the Rainbow?
Yes, he was a huge figure. He was a towering figure, your dad. And we need him and his spirit even more in the America that we are living in today. He demonstrated leadership, and it was not about perfection. It was about fidelity to principles, to people, and to purpose. That is what your dad embodied in this country and for people across the globe. He is truly a US civil rights icon, and I salute him and you and the whole family. And it is now time for you, Jesse, to take up the mantle of your father's great deeds and continue. This is what we need. We need hope, as your dad said. We need to keep hope alive. And it was not a slogan for Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It was a discipline. It was a moral posture. It was a promise to those America had locked out of the prosperity and of its prosperity and pushed to the margins of its democracy, which is happening again now. And for more than 5 decades, he kept that promise, organizing, marching, preaching, negotiating, and standing up, most importantly, in solidarity with oppressed peoples at home and abroad.
PL, PL, one of the things that I'd like to do, if you don't mind, I'd like to go to a clip that was prepared earlier by our production team, by Gina and our team, and then we'll come right back to Jesse Jackson's more international accomplishments. Yes. Gina, please roll the clip.
Dad believed that funerals were not for the dearly departed. He believed funerals were for the living. He believed that they were great gathering meetings. These homegoing services are welcome to all. Democrat, Republican, liberal, and conservative, right wing, left wing, because his life is broad enough to cover the full spectrum of what it means to be an American. We only ask people to come and be respectful in the context of the extraordinary life that he lived. Dad would have wanted us to have a great meeting to discuss our differences, to find ways of moving forward and moving together. And if his life becomes a turning point in our national political discourse, amen. Amen.
I can see Dr. King welcoming him in and saying, son, I told you you were going to do it. I mean, I can see so many people who are saying, you kept that charge. You were faithful servant. Well done. May he rest in peace, but may his spirit live forever, and let us continue the work, everyone. That is what he would want us to do.
Yes. My father comes up from the Jim Crow South. Yes. In his lifetime, he was arrested trying to visit a public library. My father grew up in a part of the country where there were segregated water fountains and segregated graveyards. So let's not measure the man by where he ended, but think about where he had to start.
Our father is a man who dedicated his life to public service, to gain, protect, and defend civil rights and human rights, to make our nation better, to make the world more just, our people better neighbors with each other. And we, his family, and the many others touched by him, inspired by him, are left obligated to continue his work to make our nation a better place for all through the techniques and tools and policy goals and platforms that he championed and left us to use.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk of 1580. Our very special guest is PL De Silva. PL, my brothers and sisters, I believe, are doing the very best they can under the circumstances to rise to the occasion.
Yes, indeed. And we need to keep the faith. We need to get together. We need to keep that the momentum of the Rainbow Coalition, the push that your dad advocated for, that he preached for, that he struggled for. This is something that is our duty to do.
PL, in your piece, you've broken it down into several sections. You call Jesse Jackson the heir to a movement, the builder of a coalition.
Yes.
Is that a distinguishing factor for the life of Jesse Jackson?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. He stood up and raised his hand and was counted at a time when other politicians were shy to do so. And he encompassed and included everybody, African Americans, Asians, Caucasians, you name it, everybody, every hue of humanity. And that was his greatness. He brought everybody together. And I'd like to say something about his internationalism. His
Please.
internationalism was a moral imperative.
And you say it's a moral imperative in part because he had cut his teeth in domestic concerns, but he too then understood that there is a relationship between what is taking place domestically and internationally.
Exactly. He made the connection and the light bulbs went off. And he was a pathfinder. So he was very courageous, and his courage was not confined to domestic battles. And he stood up at a time of Cold War orthodoxy and Middle East politics that was very acrimonious, very pro-Israeli colonialism, and it discouraged nuance and punished dissent. He insisted, your father insisted, that American moral credibility required consistency, something that is lacking today. He extended solidarity to the oppressed peoples of Palestine long before it was politically fashionable or safe to do so. He also argued that the dignity and rights of Palestinians were inseparable from the universal principles Americans claimed to cherish. He sought dialogue with leaders across divides, believing that empathy was not endorsement and that engagement was a prerequisite for peace. We need global peace, and we need Jesse Jackson Sr.'s spirit to give us emphasis for peace.
You know what, PL? I want to say this. When I remember 1984 and 1988, when Jesse Jackson was actually bringing this coalition into the Democratic primary process. Now, this is hard for some people to imagine if you didn't live during that period. Most minorities show up in the general election. That's the November contest. They didn't show up in the primaries. They missed, if you will, the primaries in the midterm elections prior to 1984. No one had ever given us a reason to show up in the primary process. And the way in which the primary process was actually laid out, Iowa would vote for whoever the Democratic nominee was going to be. If that Democratic nominee emerged out of Iowa successfully, usually a white guy, they would then go on to New Hampshire and run, the first primary state beyond the caucuses of Iowa. And whoever wins the New Hampshire primary and has won the Iowa caucuses is usually en route to the Democratic nomination. And they still hadn't yet met African-American voters or voters of color in any significant measure. That's not easy for people to reconcile, but that was the reality prior to 1984. When Jesse Jackson shows up, runs well in Iowa and runs well in New Hampshire and begins building a broad-based coalition, the Democratic primaries by definition were extended because as they turned the corner to Super Tuesday, with multiple white male candidates in the race, Jesse Jackson played better and fared better in his nascent Rainbow Coalition in those states which extended the Democratic election and primary process. Usually after New Hampshire, other Democrats start folding their tents, feeling as though they don't have or didn't have an opportunity to win. So I want to say that because it is directly tied to the policies that Jesse Jackson stood for in the international sphere, because it brought over time, the idea that minority voters could have some say in foreign policy by holding Democrats accountable earlier to their positions in the primary process internationally. In other words, we didn't have to wait for a plank at the Democratic Convention in the summer of the election year. You had to tell us where you stood in the primary process. And it would be Jesse Jackson who would say, we must measure human rights, this is his language, by one yardstick. The same yardstick, 36 inches. That every human life must be measured by that 36 inches. That Israeli security and Palestinian justice must be measured by the same yardstick. That freedom for Mandela in South Africa must be measured by the same yardstick. That freedom for people in Cuba and liberation for people in South America and Panama must be measured by the same yardstick. If we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal. I was there in 84 and 88. And I heard Jesse Jackson making this plea to the nation and making this plea to the world that we must measure human rights by one yardstick. And that included international law and a respect for international law and the actions of the United Nations in the world order. Pio?
Yes, I'm glad that you brought up South Africa, because your father was equally forthright in condemning South Africa's apartheid regime. While many US leaders hedged or prioritized strategic interests, he stood with the anti-apartheid movement. He supported sanctions and economic pressure to dismantle the apartheid system that had codified racial subjugation. When Nelson Mandela emerged from 27 years of imprisonment, your father was among those who celebrated not only a man's freedom, but a new South Africa, a nation's birth. So in both Palestine and South Africa, your father, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr.'s stance reflected a deeper conviction, and that is that civil rights were not an American export, but a universal birthright, as you rightly said. His faith demanded it. His politics operationalized it.
Pio, you then go on to talk about the rainbow as a democratic blueprint, not necessarily as a coalition within the Democratic Party, but the idea of multicultural living as a democratic priority. You said the rainbow was not naive about power. It was strategic. It sought to translate moral energy into electoral leverage. Can you build upon that for us?
Yes. So the most important thing of my piece on your dad, my ode to your father, is that his life carried the rainbow. That it boils down to that. Your father's life carried the rainbow. So it is in an era increasingly defined by polarization today, right? Reverend Jackson's Rainbow Coalition reads less like a relic of the 80s and more a blueprint for democratic survival.
Less like a relic of the 80s, but more like a blueprint for the survival of the democracy itself.
Exactly. He recognized demographic change not as a threat, but as a promise. He saw in America's diversity the possibility of moral and economic renewal. He championed voting rights, labor protections, public education, and economic justice. He opposed apartheid abroad and discrimination at home. He insisted that foreign policy reflect domestic values and that domestic policy reckon with global inequality. The rainbow was not naive about power. It was strategic. It sought to translate moral energy into electoral leverage. And that was the genius. Jackson registered voters. He built grassroots networks. He forced party platforms to incorporate issues once dismissed as fringe. His presidential campaigns altered the calculus of American politics that demonstrated that Black candidates could compete nationally, that poor and working class voters could be mobilized across racial lines, and that progressive foreign policy positions had a constituency.
P.L., my mother insisted that I say this today at the press conference, and you write about it in this ode to the life of Jesse Jackson, a hand extended across the divides. My mother said that her husband's funeral will be open to all, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, Black, white, red, blue. She just wanted people to be respectful. She just wanted people to be thankful for the life of Reverend Jesse Jackson. And she too has extended a hand, if you will, across the political divide, welcoming anyone to her husband's funeral because it reflects the values of his life and the broad-based nature of who he was. And of course, some of us have our own political attitudes and dispositions about who should be at a funeral and who doesn't come to a funeral. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of us ain't nobody coming to your funeral because you didn't live the kind of life that Jesse Jackson lived. And so every funeral is different. People have a lot of friends. Some folk have no friends. And some people are actually exposed to friends for the very first time. The King of Great Britain has extended his heartfelt condolences to the life of Jesse Jackson, as well as leadership from around the world. How important is it that Mrs. Jackson's wishes be honored in recognizing the significance of the life of Jesse Jackson?
She really says it, because your father's most underappreciated gift was his willingness to extend a hand of friendship where animosity seemed entrenched. So she's very right to take up that. He believed in meeting adversaries face to face, not hide behind, on social media. Meet them face to face, not making caricatures and videos. He wanted to meet his adversaries face to face. He had the courage to do so. And he believed that even hardened systems could yield to persistent moral pressure. So it's our duty to speak to our brothers and sisters in Israel to make sure that the hardest of hearts are softened, that the Palestinians will get justice and freedom.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. He also extended an invitation, my mother did, to the right wing in this country, and you all know exactly what that means. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., more with P.L. Da Silva in just a moment.
I went to my first high school basketball game in California Tuesday night. and wound up seeing one of the best players in the country. I found out later in the first quarter that the kid is number 5 in the nation on ESPN's Top 100 for the class of 2026. The kid is Jason Crow Jr., a 6'4", smooth-shooting left-handed guard at Inglewood High. I know now why Crow is a top 5 prospect. He dropped 45 points last night to lead Inglewood to an 82-69 win over Anaheim Fairmont Prep in the Division I semifinals. 24 of his 45 points last night came on 3-pointers. Crow has one of the smoothest strokes for a jumper I've ever seen on the high school level, and I've seen my share of high school legends while growing up in Chicago. Crow is going to Missouri in the fall. How in the world did USC and UCLA let a kid like this get out of their backyard? No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I have some news. The room is full. Our founding members cohort on the art of conversation has begun, and I could not be more energized by the professionals who said yes to mastering the craft. Their dedication to curating great conversations reminds me why I do this work. Now, if you wanted to join us and did not make it in time, I want you to hear this. The next cohort is coming. I do not have the firm dates yet, but I do have a waiting list. And everyone on that list will receive early access and special discounts when enrollment opens. After almost 40 years of interviewing world leaders and cultural icons, I am teaching everything I know. Don't miss your chance to be in the next room. Go to TavisTalks.com and get on the waiting list right now. That's TavisTalks.com. The conversation continues. Will you be part of it?
Yeah, man.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized, the families who watched their inheritance disappear, the wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And our regular host on this particular first hour of our program is always Dr. P.L. Da Silva. P.L., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much, my brother.
In your wonderful piece about my father, A Life That Carried the Rainbow, Pernaka L. Da Silva writes in this particular section, The Best of the United States. To commemorate Jesse Jackson is to acknowledge the paradox of America itself. He emerged from a nation scarred by slavery and segregation, yet he believed in its redemptive capacity. He criticized its failures unsparingly, yet he invested his life in its institutions. PL, about the paradox.
Yes, your father was, at the end of the day, a patriot. He was an American patriot. And I think it behooves the people who are in power today to understand that the United States, at its best, is not defined by its military or economic dominance. It is defined by its capacity for self-correction, by its willingness to expand the circle of belonging, by its recognition that justice delayed is democracy diminished. This is a crucial lesson, and it was embodied by your father, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., a U.S. civil rights icon. And he embodied this tradition. He did not romanticize America, he challenged it. He called it to live up to its founding ideals, not selectively, and that's the most important thing, but universally, across the board. As debates rage today over voting rights, racial equity, immigration, Middle East policy, and America's global role, Reverend Jackson's life offers a moral compass. He reminds us that coalitions are built, not assumed, that solidarity is practiced, not proclaimed. That hope is sustained through organization, and this is something that I keep harping about. We need to organize in the spirit of the civil rights movement and be ready for the midterm elections, come hell or high water.
Peel, in your conclusion, you say in the final analysis, Jesse Jackson's greatest achievement may have been psychological. Now, this hit me and threw me for a minute because when you look at the news and the reflection on Jesse Jackson, some people see, particularly if you have a political lens on, you see it as what he accomplished in 1984 and 88 that one might conclude culminated in the election of Barack Obama and the nomination of Kamala Harris. That's the political lens. But then if you look at the same life through the civil rights lens, and more of that story is coming out, you see certain achievements in terms of Black economic progress. And I've heard through breadbasket devotees and Rainbow Push devotees and people who have followed my father's career over the course of their lives, devotees, the economic impact that he had on challenging corporate America, if you will, small but necessary tweaks to capitalism that had ignored the disparate, the damned, the locked out, and certainly minorities. But you say here that the Rainbow and Jesse Jackson's greatest achievement may have been psychological. I don't think I've heard anyone offer a psychological analysis of what Jesse Jackson did to America.
Because he made us believe in ourselves. He taught millions that their voices mattered. Even if you look at that clip, with the little children, he showed that people mattered. We matter. We may be of different, skin color. We talk with different accents, but we matter. And that's the most important psychological lesson for all of us to know, that we are worth. We are worth. It's not just only people in power, but the marginalized peoples. We are worth. We have worth. And we are not to be condemned for permanent marginalization. And politics, therefore, becomes an instrument of empowerment rather than exclusion. Hence the need for organization.
PL, our production team, Gina Towns, has a clip that she'd like to play right now.
I may be poor, but I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but I am somebody. I may be in jail, but I am somebody. I may be uneducated, but I am somebody. I am black, beautiful, proud. I must be respected. I must be protected. I am somebody. Right on.
To your point, PL, people who were struggling with a consciousness of nobodiness, of deficiencies in what the system itself had beaten them down to believe about themselves, Jesse Jackson emerges with this mantra that is psychological, convincing people that they were different than they had perceived and conceived themselves.
Different and powerful. And that's the thing. We are powerful. We are not to be marginalized. The people united cannot be stopped. So let's see all our detractors in the midterm elections in November. Because your father showed the way. He was a pathfinder for African Americans, for Black Americans, who had never seen a serious presidential bid come from one of their own. He opened the door. And for Palestinians seeking to recognize their humanity, he offered validation. For South Africans resisting apartheid, he offered solidarity. For workers, immigrants, and the poor, he offered a coalition. This is what we need. He lived the conviction that the struggle for justice is indivisible. And today, as the rainbow he envisioned faces new storm, measure of dispute will not be in words but in action. To honor Jesse Jackson is to organize, to vote, to speak, to stand with the oppressed, whether in Chicago, Johannesburg, or Gaza, to build alliances across lines that others insist are permanent. He demonstrated that leadership grounded in faith, integrity, and courage can alter a nation's trajectory. He showed that America's story is not finished, and that its best chapters are written by those who refuse to surrender to cynicism.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest is PL De Silva. More when we come forward in just a moment.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires. But what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized. The families who watched their inheritance disappear. The wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The BLM Center for Black Power is a hub for Black activism in the city of Los Angeles, a standalone nonprofit affiliated with Black Lives Matter LA. The venue is home to live events, meetings, and organizing drives for Black-led community-based organizations. It is also the base of operations for Black Lives Matter LA. Built on what used to be a nuisance property owned by an arms dealer, the BLM Center for Black Power is in the heart of Leimert Park and has opened its doors to everything from youth organizers to toy drives to film screenings and community town hall meetings. To make a donation or make a request, please visit blmla.org. That's blmla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis, which causes joint pain, stiffness, and swelling? Does this sound like you? Listen to what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy, and for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Visit Tremfya.com or call 1-800-526-7736.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome Wednesdays on the J Lux Club. And our very special contributor, Dr. P.L. De Silva, who has over 20 years' experience in backroom diplomacy, mediation, and negotiation. He's taught politics, international relations, and several graduate and undergraduate programs at universities in New York, New Jersey, Long Island, and Queens, University of Belfast in Northern Ireland. Dr. De Silva's publications include Postmodern Insurgencies, Political Violence, Identity Formation, Peacemaking, and Comparative Perspective. He's the co-founder with Professor W.D. Lakshman, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, of the International War-Related Trauma and Humanitarian Intervention Trust, setting up psychosocial training programs for practitioners serving combatants, non-combatants during Sri Lanka's Civil War. Dr. De Silva, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, my brother Jesse.
Dr. De Silva, the final two lines of this amazing piece that you wrote, titled A Life That Carried the Rainbow, an ode to U.S. civil rights icon, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., 1941 to 2026. The final two lines, well, they are a treatment within themselves. You said that Jesse Jackson Sr. kept hope alive. And then the final question, of course, is whether we will. Can you share with us your thoughts on some of the ways in which Jesse Jackson kept hope alive and why that challenge for us is equally, if not more urgent now than ever?
Yes. So in 1971, your father founded what he called Operation Push, which is People United to Save Humanity. We need it more than ever now under this current administration. And he, of course, merged Push later on with the Rainbow Coalition. And that phrase, Rainbow Coalition, was not a rhetorical flourish. It was strategic genius. He understood that America's power structure on division. They always try to divide, as they say in Latin, divide et impera, which means divide and rule. So black against white, native born against immigrant, worker against worker. And the Rainbow Coalition, his Rainbow Coalition, sought to transcend those fault lines. And that is what we need to do, because we are, again, being divided. We have ICE in our communities, dividing, Americans versus immigrants, all this kind of stuff that is being artificially generated and sprung with a great deal of violence in our communities. We need to overcome that. And that is the hope that Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. brought to the table, brought to us, which he exemplified, which he embodied. And this is what we need to do. We must overcome our divisions and defeat the people who are truly bringing this country down. This is a great country, and it is unity in struggle that will see us through. It is why the South Africans were able to succeed. There was unity in struggle. It's something that the great Amilcar Cabral wrote about. He was the the General Secretary of the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, because before Portuguese agents killed him, assassinated him. But unity in struggle is what we need today.
Pio, let me add this. I think, and this is just my own personal reflection, that, and I give as a seminarian a lot of thought to spirit energy. I think Dr. King accomplished not only a lot in his 39 years of life, and certainly we are still excavating and comparatively analyzing and critiquing the ways in which his words matter today more than ever. This is, we commemorated on January 15th his 97th birthday. He's been dead or deceased twice as long as he lived, and yet his impact is still being felt. I struggle with Dad's 84 years, recognizing that even in this moment, that there may be so much more about the life of Jesse Jackson that for the next 90 years or 100 years or beyond, we may still be unpacking. Because you can't pack it overnight. You can't pack it in the 2-week memorial service. It is a constant unpacking of there's a line in the Negro spirituals that said, treading the path of the blood of the slaughtered. Many of the paths that we will walk in the future are paths that Jesse Jackson has already tread. He's already been down this path. And He navigates us past this pothole and past this abyss. And he says the way around it is to go this way. And so we're going to be reflecting upon the life of Jesse Jackson and the methodology, including something that you excavated today, that Jesse Jackson's psychological impact on the masses of people, maybe something we haven't even begun to unpack in terms of giving us our sense of somebodyness and our sense of possibility that comes from that particular message. But in this moment, and since our focus in this hour has been on Jesse Jackson's global contributions, I remind everyone today that not only has he received praise from the King of Britain for his life, but accolades and praise comes in from presidents and embassies from around the world for the contribution that Jesse Jackson made. And in this moment, I'm going to do what I can share with you on behalf of my family, an assignment that I've accepted from my mother, and that is to make sure that the spirit energy of what these commemorations represent be representative of his spirit, that it doesn't devolve into the kind of partisan remembrance that keeps us from being able to extend a hand. It doesn't mean we principally change our position. It doesn't mean that we give up any moral authority for what we know to be right, but that we conduct ourselves at the highest level of decency and respect and civility. PL, we have about 2 minutes for your final word of hope.
Your father embodied leadership and integrity, something which is lacking today. So we need to learn lessons from great people like your father, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., and his mentor, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. These are icons of the US civil rights movement and what truly made America great. And that is the hope that we have the courage and the vision and the fortitude to carry on their messages of hope, solidarity, and to change the United States for the better, that we are able to, that we are able to learn from our mistakes and right the ship. And this is the message of hope that your father, Dr. King, and others in the civil rights movement have shown the United States and the world.
So proud of my dad. The Reverend Jesse Jackson is no longer with us, and yet he's with us. Thank you, PL, for your very kind contribution and tribute to Jesse Jackson. More on KBLA Talk 1580 with Reverend Todd Yeary on Wealthy Wednesdays when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to restore a slavery exhibit removed from Philadelphia's President's House site at Independence National Historic Park.
We have won! We have won!
Protesters gathered to celebrate the ruling as the judge cited George Orwell's novel 1984 and said the government must follow the law and consult the city before altering the exhibit while the legal battle continues. Former President Barack Obama is honoring Reverend Jesse Jackson, calling him a true giant who helped lead historic movements for change. Obama said Jackson's presidential campaigns in 1984 and 1988 led the foundation for his own 2008 run. And Whoopi Goldberg is addressing her name appearing in Jeffrey Epstein files, saying she was only seeking a private plane for a 2013 charity event and had no relationship with Epstein. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Visit the new Hard Rock Casino Tejon for the Kilo of Gold giveaway. Drawings and